Welcome to my channel, Super Rare Coins. Today is best, top 3 coins. Please don't skip this video. The Canada 1 cent coin dated 1977 featuring Queen Elizabeth II is a small yet historically significant piece of Canadian numismatic heritage. Struck by the Royal Canadian Mint in Ottawa, this coin belongs to the Bronze Era of Canadian pennies, minted before the major composition change to copper-plated zinc in the late 1990s. The 1977 cent is part of the long-running Canadian small cent series introduced in 1920, replacing the earlier large cent format. By the mid-1970s, the coin maintained its traditional 19.05 mm diameter and 3.24 g weight, being composed of 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc, giving it a distinctive reddish-brown metallic luster that would darken with circulation over time. On the obverse, the coin proudly displays the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II, who had been Canada's monarch since 1952. The 1977 issue features the second effigy of the Queen, designed by Arnold Machin, introduced in 1965 and used until 1989. In this portrait, Her Majesty is shown facing right, wearing a tiara known as the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, gifted to her in 1947. Around the portrait is the Latin Elizabeth II d.G. Regina, meaning Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. The artistry is fine and dignified, a hallmark of Canadian coinage design during this period. The reverse side carries the iconic maple leaf twig design by George Edward Kruger Gray, first used in 1937. This design shows two maple leaves, one large and one small, attached to a single twig, symbolizing Canada's natural heritage and national pride. The word Canada is placed below the leaves, with the denomination 1 cent above and the year 1977 positioned centrally under the twig. The design is both simple and emblematic, ensuring instant recognition even for those unfamiliar with numismatics. Over decades of production, this reverse became one of Canada's most recognizable coin motifs from a historical context. 1977 was not a year of major design change for the Canadian cent, but it was part of a stable period in Canadian coinage production. Canada's economy in the late 1970s was undergoing periods of inflation and shifting global trade dynamics, but the 1 cent coin still retained purchasing power in everyday transactions. In 1977, vending machines, parking meters, and retail shops still readily accepted and used pennies for precise pricing, unlike in later decades when inflation would diminish their practical value. The mintage for the 1977 Canada 1 cent was well into the hundreds of millions, ensuring widespread circulation. Most examples were struck for general use, though a smaller quantity was produced in brilliant uncirculated quality for annual uncirculated sets sold by the Royal Canadian Mint to collectors. Proof-like and proof versions, with highly polished dies, also exist in sets, displaying sharper detail and mirror-like fields compared to circulation-struck coins. In terms of metallurgy, the coin's bronze composition means it is non-magnetic and has a slightly warm tone compared to later copper-plated issues. When freshly struck, the color is bright red, but exposure to air and handling causes oxidation, shifting the hue toward a deeper red-brown or even dark chocolate brown. Collectors often grade these coins based on how much of the original mint red remains visible. A coin with full mint red luster commands higher collector interest than one that is fully toned to brown. Numismatically, the 1977 cent is considered a common date in circulated grades, meaning millions still exist in drawers, jars, and collections across Canada. However, pristine, uncirculated examples with no spots or carbon marks can be more desirable, especially in MS65 red or higher condition on the Sheldon grading scale. These high-grade coins are often found only in mint sets or from original rolls that have been stored carefully. Over the years, some minor varieties have been observed in 1977 cents, such as small die differences or slight doubling of the date or lettering due to die wear or striking issues. While no major variety is officially recognized by the Royal Canadian Mint for this year, advanced collectors sometimes seek out interesting die cracks, repunched dates, or other minting anomalies that can add interest and value. Next, the Canada 1 cent 2000 Queen Elizabeth II coin is a small copper-plated steel circulation coin produced by the Royal Canadian Mint for everyday transactions. It carries a nominal value of 1 cent in the Canadian monetary system and forms part of Canada's long-standing 1 cent coin series, which dates back to 1858. The 2000 issue is from the closing years of the century-long tradition of bronze-based small-denomination coins, though by this time the composition had shifted away from solid bronze to cost-efficient plated steel. The coin's basic specifications are a mass of 2.35 grams, a diameter of 19.05 millimeters, and a smooth plain edge. While its purchasing power was minimal in 2000, it still held cultural significance for completing transactions and being an iconic element of Canadian pocket change. Obverse design Queen Elizabeth II portrait. The obverse of the coin features a right-facing effigy of Queen Elizabeth II, Canada's constitutional monarch, executed by Canadian artist Dora de Pedery Hunt. This particular portrait style, introduced in 1990, shows the Queen wearing a tiara, the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara, with a more mature and dignified depiction compared to earlier designs. Around the effigy is the Elizabeth II D.G. Regina, which translates to Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. This wording reflects the monarchy's constitutional role and has been a staple on Canadian coins since Elizabeth II's succession in 1953. The artistry balances realism with the formal tone expected of coinage, ensuring instant recognition and ceremonial gravitas. Reverse design, maple leaf motif. The reverse side features the iconic maple leaf twig design created by G.E. Kruger Gray in 1937. It depicts two maple leaves and a small twig, a design chosen for its strong connection to Canadian identity, as the maple leaf is the national emblem of Canada. Above the leaves is the word Canada, while the denomination 1 cent appears at the top of the design. The date, 2000, is placed just below 1 cent and above the stem of the twig. This reverse design remained virtually unchanged for decades, becoming one of the most recognizable coin motifs in the world and a patriotic reminder of Canada's heritage and environment. By the year 2000, the Royal Canadian Mint had shifted the penny's composition from bronze to copper-plated steel to reduce production costs. The 2001 cent coin consists of 94% steel, 1.5% nickel, and 4.5% copper plating, giving it the same reddish appearance as earlier bronze coins while significantly lowering metal expenses. This change also made the coin magnetic, a notable difference from its non-magnetic predecessors. The coins were struck primarily at the Ottawa Mint and the Winnipeg Mint, with the latter handling much of the high-volume production. Mintage for circulation in 2000 reached nearly 1 billion coins, reflecting heavy usage in Canadian commerce at the time. Special Millennium context. The year 2000 carried symbolic importance as the turn of the millennium. While the standard penny retained its traditional design, Canada also issued various commemorative coins in higher denominations that year to celebrate the new century. For the penny, the 2000 issue stands out as one of the last to see such massive production before debates about the cost and practicality of the cent intensified. Many Canadians at the time saw the penny as both a nostalgic keepsake and a nuisance in everyday commerce due to its low value. This dual perception foreshadowed the eventual discontinuation of the denomination in 2013. Circulation and use in economy. In 2000, the penny was still actively used in retail, vending, and cash transactions. Businesses accepted it without hesitation, and coin rolls of 50 pieces were common at banks. The coin's small size and light weight meant it was easy to carry but also easy to lose. Its production in such high volumes was necessary to replace coins lost from circulation, as many were set aside in jars, drawers, or collected for sentimental reasons. The high wear resistance of plated steel meant the coins could last years in circulation, though copper plating could chip, revealing the silver-gray steel beneath. Collectability and numismatic value. From a collector's perspective, the 2001 cent coin is common in circulated grades due to its huge mintage. Uncirculated or proof-like examples, however, hold more interest, especially those from mint sets or special rolls. The coin's numismatic value is generally minimal in circulated condition, often equal to its face value, but pristine examples can be worth more to collectors seeking to complete date runs of Canadian cents. Variations in strike quality, mint luster, or small die differences, such as doubling on lettering, can create niche interest, legacy, and cultural memory. Although the 2000 Canadian penny was an ordinary workhorse coin, it forms part of the final chapter of the Canadian cent's history before its phase-out. It embodies the balance between tradition, retaining the 1937 maple leaf design and the monarch's effigy, and practicality, modern metal composition. For many Canadians, such coins are reminders of their youth and of a time when every cent counted in daily purchases, whether buying candy, making exact change for a bus fare, or feeding parking meters. Today, these coins serve as a small but tangible relic of Canadian monetary heritage. Next, the 2003 Canada 1 cent coin featuring Queen Elizabeth II represents a unique and transitional moment in Canadian coinage history. Issued by the Royal Canadian Mint, This coin not only continues the long-running maple leaf cent series, but also features two distinct obverse portraits of Queen Elizabeth II in the same year, a highly unusual occurrence for modern Canadian currency. This makes the 2003 cent a subject of strong interest among collectors despite being a common circulation coin in lower grades. The 2003 cent belongs to the final decades of the Canadian 1-cent coin's life, which officially ended in 2012 when the denomination was discontinued. At the time of its issue, pennies were still widely used in daily commerce, enabling precise change and supporting Canada's retail pricing structure. However, their actual buying power had been significantly eroded by decades of inflation since the penny's introduction in 1858. The reverse design is the iconic maple leaf twig motif created by artist George Edward Kruger Gray in 1937. This enduring image shows two maple leaves, one large and one small, joined to a single stem. The design symbolizes Canada's natural heritage and is instantly recognizable. The words 1 cent appear above the leaves, the date 2003 appears centrally beneath the twig, and the country name Canada is inscribed along the bottom rim. The obverse design is where 2003 gets especially interesting. In this year, the Royal Canadian Mint introduced a new portrait of Queen Elizabeth II designed by Canadian artist Susanna Blunt. This fourth definitive effigy of the Queen, used from 2003 until the penny's retirement, shows her without a crown, smiling slightly and facing right. The decision to depict the Queen uncrowned was meant to portray her in a more modern and relatable manner. However, early in 2003, coins were still being struck with the previous portrait by Dora de Pettery Hunt, which had been in use from 1990 to early 2003. This meant that two types of 2003 1-cent coins were produced, the old effigy, de Pettery Hunt, and the new effigy, Susanna Blunt, varieties. This dual portrait year is a standout in Canadian numismatic history. Both versions feature the Latin Elizabeth II D.G. Regina, meaning Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, Queen. This surrounds the Queen's portrait along the coin's outer rim, in keeping with long-standing Commonwealth coin traditions. The coin's specifications in 2003 were different from the earlier bronze cents. The Royal Canadian Mint had transitioned in 2000 to producing pennies with a copper-plated zinc core. The composition is 94% steel, 1.5% nickel, and 4.5% copper plating for later dates, though some 2003 cents are copper-plated zinc rather than steel, depending on production batches. This gave the coins a noticeably different weight of 2.35 grams compared to the earlier 3.24 g bronze cents. The diameter of the 2003 cent is 19.05 millimeters, and its thickness is 1.45 millimeters. The edge is plain, smooth, as it has been for all Canadian 1-cent coins since the small cent was introduced in 1920. The coin's metallic composition makes it magnetic if struck on steel planchets and non-magnetic if struck on zinc, which collectors often test using a small magnet. The minting process in 2003 employed advanced die engraving and high-speed press technology at the Royal Canadian Mint's facilities in Winnipeg. This allowed for massive production runs to meet circulation demand across Canada, as pennies were still heavily used in 2003 despite declining value. Mintage numbers for 2003 are high, with hundreds of millions of cents struck. The majority are circulation strikes, but a smaller number were produced in special finishes such as proof-like and specimen quality for collector sets. These higher quality coins have sharper details and more reflective surfaces. The old effigy, 2003 cents, were struck only at the start of the year before the portrait changeover. The new effigy, blunt portrait coins made up the bulk of the year's production, but the older design remains popular with variety collectors because of its limited RUN. In addition to the effigy varieties, collectors look for small die varieties, striking errors, and planchet differences in 2003 cents. For example, off-center strikes, die cracks, and double dies can command a premium if well-defined and dramatic. The year 2003 also marked the 50th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation, 1953-2003, adding a historical milestone to the coin's background, even though the cent itself did not carry a special commemorative reverse design for this anniversary. From a design philosophy standpoint, the 2003 portrait change reflected a broader movement in Commonwealth coinage toward modernization. Removing the crown from the Queen's effigy was seen as a symbolic move toward presenting the monarch as a person rather than solely as a state figure. The Susanna Blunt portrait remains distinctive in Canadian coinage because it is the first official Canadian effigy of the Queen to omit both a crown and a veil. It presents her in a more naturalistic, approachable style. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe my channel for more videos.